Hello there, everybody, and welcome back to Circling Seattle Sports on Converge Media. Charles Hammaker here, joined by Bel Garcia, as always. And it seems like I always say, "Oh, maybe it's a quiet week. Maybe things don't get quiet around here."
Not at
I
all.
mean, I think we incorporated Sports Star of the Week for Seattle at a good time because last week we had some pretty solid performances. Obviously I was biased with Van der Yacht, but Ty France has really had a really good homestand. Fell in Tullis-Joyce now with 3 saves of the week out of four weeks of this Challenge Cup, 3 saves of the week.
That's
3 out of
awesome.
4 is pretty impressive, to take the league-wide award, something like that. So I think we incorporated it at a good time. So it's not like we can really have a sort of off week or a slow week. I just don't think that's going to happen. So with that being said, that is the last week of April now. We're approaching May. Some big things are happening. The NFL draft is coming up. Mariners season continues. The WNBA season is starting up. NWSL regular season starting up. NHL season's coming to an end for the regular season, and our guys won't see the postseason. MLR, Major League Rugby, their postseason sort of coming around, and the Seawolves playoff race continues to be tight. The Sounders continue in CCL, so things won't get slow. That's my point. So with that being said, we're going to jump into a relatively slower Seahawks segment. What do we got going on over with our guys at the Seahawks?
I'm actually gonna pass it off right back to you because we do have a mock first round pick again this week. So for Charles's pick, we have offensive tackle Evan Neal, and then a potential surprise pick of Desmond Ridder. So can you just give us your thought process on those?
Yeah, so I mean, you see right now, we'll just leave this up for a second, looking at Evan Neal. I'm digging in with this pick. I know I said we'd look at maybe a second one, but the 3 main positions of need for the Seahawks at the NFL draft and the media are really focusing on a quarterback, obviously, cornerback and offensive tackle. I really don't think, out of Pete Carroll and John Schneider's their stubbornness and how stubborn they tend to be, with guys they bring in free agency or with even the guys that they've currently got on the roster, I don't think they're going to go with the cornerback at number 9.
Yeah.
Let alone, I mean, this. They might not even draft at number 9. They went straight out of that pick.
Right.
So, this is hypothetical. This is if they keep that pick, which, there was a report that came out, just today about the NFL about a bunch of teams want to trade out of the first round. Out of the first round picks, it's tough.
That's crazy.
Because I know there isn't it's not like when there was like the Andrew Lucks and the RG3s and Cam Newton, who are some other, like Joe Burrow. There's no number 1 pick stamp on really anybody right now, let alone any of these quarterbacks. And quarterback is obviously a make or break position in this league for a lot of teams, right? I think that if you gave the Colts a star quarterback, not just an average guy, I think they're maybe an AFC favorite. Personally, if they somehow landed Russell Wilson without giving up too much, I think they're going to the Super Bowl. Yeah. Personally, that's a different subject though. So, first round pick, I personally don't see any of these quarterbacks as number 9 overall pick potential. Maybe late first rounder if you're able to sneak back in. But I don't know if you would. With the reports about trading up, maybe trading out, maybe some teams would bite for that. But also with the 2 things with the Seahawks and drafting, you have to kind of assume they're going to trade out of that high pick that they've got, if that initial first round pick, right, to get more. Yeah, it's and then 2, you have to be ready for surprises, like the Super Bowl. I think it was 2012 year. With Russell Wilson being in that draft later. Who was the first round pick? Do you remember that?
I don't.
It was Bruce Irvin. Nobody thought Bruce Irvin would be in the first round because of his off the field stuff. Goes first round. Bruce had a solid career. I think he signed with the Bears last year. I don't think he's playing this year. I don't believe so. LJ Collier. Did anybody expect him to go in the first? No. Rashad Penny. No. So you have to be ready for surprises. I think it's the idea of not knowing whether they're going to stay in that pick, which they probably won't, and then also the surprise factor. So I think maybe, with the fact that they did have a visit with Ridder, that he could be in the cards there. And the Pete Carroll whole mantra of competing. You got Drew Lock and Geno Smith in there, and maybe, again, I'm a Husky, so Jacob Eason might be in the mix, but I don't really think. I think he's too much of a raw talent right now. Maybe you do throw a guy in, because do they maybe see Drew Lock? And that's the thing why I also kind of rule out the quarterback aspect of it as well, because there have been so many reports, and they've even said that they see Drew Lock as a guy who hasn't really been given a fair slate in the NFL. So I take the court. That's how I take the quarterback side of it out. Now we're left with the cornerback on offensive tackle. Cornerback, you signed Artie Burns. You re-signed, help me out here, Sidney Jones, right? You got Trey Brown there still waiting. Who else did we sign? Trey Brown.
It's totally escaping
Artie Burns, Sidney Jones. I know that I just don't think that you have the cornerback room that you have, and then especially even letting up on DJ Reed. You could have paid DJ Reed money.
Yeah,
you could have
kept him.
So I think that with what they've added in that room, I cast that aside, and I think offensive tackle right now, you don't have Dwayne Brown, you don't have Brandon Shell,
right?
So you've got like Stone Forsythe on the roster and Jake Curran, who are both. Curran played solidly last year towards the end of the season. Forsythe, we have no idea how well he's progressed, really. So it's just, you've got two unknowns. Why don't you get a franchise guy like that you can have around and grow, but also be an immediate factor? And if we look back at the Neal side, what does the grading say? Year one starter potential, and he can grow. That's how I look at it in this whole draft situation.
Yeah.
And I mean, it seems like you've kind of gone that same direction as well, sticking with Mr. Cross here.
Yeah. So for all the reasons that you just specified, that's exactly why I'm sticking with Charles Cross. And honestly, again, for all the reasons that you specified, and maybe not even keeping this number 9 pick, it's so hard to even try to mock something up. So of course, we're looking at what is most needed. And yeah, I think doubling down on that is the way to go for now. We'll see if any surprises come ahead.
And then, that's why I remember when the Jamal Adams trade happened, I was like, I don't care if I wrote first round pick, like in the like right off the bat, as soon as I read the Bleacher Report thing on my phone, I didn't care about it too much, because first round pick Seattle tends to trade out of them anyway, and they haven't been that great at getting. Oh, and then not Quentin Jefferson, Malik McDowell. I think he might have been early second round, but he didn't work out. So high picks weren't really a forte for Seattle. So that's why I didn't really quantify that as being much, So I would say expect the unexpected when it comes to this draft, as we have seen in several years since John Schneider and Pete Carroll have been at the helm for Seattle, and expect a surprise, because it's not like Seattle, or even Jordan Brooks, right? People thought that Patrick Queen was like the presumptive pick at the inside linebacker position, in the draft. And so Seattle picked Jordan Brooks, and then right after that, with the Ravens pick, they took Patrick Queen. And I'd say Jordan Brooks is having a better career than Patrick Queen. I'm not saying that Patrick Queen is bad, but I'm saying that Brooks has turned out. So it's the Seahawks draft conundrum is a really interesting one. And so when that date comes up, and that's 3 days, that starts on Thursday. Expect the unexpected, because really, I don't know what to tell you. If I have to throw something at the wall and hope that it sticks, I'm not even sure if it is Neal. Maybe it is Cross. I'm just saying offensive tackle. That's the only thing that I would feel like 60% confident about out of 100 is that it's going to be an offensive tackle. Okay. And even then, I don't know if they trade out of it. So that's where we stuck with our picks. I know that we were talking about potentially looking at new ones. I just don't see them going for a Derek Stingley. I don't think Sauce Gardner drops to number 9, let alone Malik Willis dropping to number 9 now with recent mocks. But also, there is the funny way that the draft works, where some guys do slide, So there were rumors that Mac Jones might have gone top 5, and then he fell to the Patriots, So stuff like that. The draft is a funny place, and anybody that tells you usually outside of the top 15 or so where someone's going to go, it's kind of hard to predict that kind of stuff. So that's how I view the draft.
Well, for sure, we'll have an update by next week, since the draft is at the latter end of the week this week. So definitely will provide an update on Monday as to how the Seahawks did in the draft. Moving forward, there's not much about the Seahawks. Of course, still tracking DK Metcalf and hopefully his contract extension. As of now, DK says that he is tuned in regards to his contract situation. Head coach Pete Carroll says that he's really tuned in. He's shown a really good mentality about the return in regards to DK's attitude at voluntary workouts with contract talks in the looming, of course. I don't know what to expect here. I want to say that they'll reach an extension, but you never know.
I mean, with what happened on March 8th, with Russell being traded and Bobby Wagner being cut, I mean, even before then there was some trust issues, but even more so now.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a few days before that happened. In these like league meetings, they had their like, oh, the quarterback's not available.
Right.
And then, so, I don't know. I would say if I'm in that chair where I want to win now and I'm John Schneider,
you're going to keep DK.
I mean, there's so many avenues that you look at where that makes the most sense. I've got a young quarterback. If we're looking at, okay, say we're going with Drew Lock, or even if we draft a guy, I've got a young quarterback that needs a good weapon. DK Metcalf.
Mm-hmm.
I have a young star who wants to be a leader. He's talked about being a leader. I have to keep DK. I've got a young guy who's got tons of potential, tons and tons of potential, and isn't a one-trick pony. Why? And it doesn't sound like he wants out.
Thank God, because that's currently not the situation.
Exactly.
With others.
What negative point do I have? I don't care about the salary cap. You're going to have to spend money. It's not like the Super Bowl where if you looked at the 2013 team, Bobby Wagner, Russell Wilson, Richard Sherman, Cam Chancellor, Earl Thomas, the Legion of Boom, that defense, most of those guys were on rookie contracts or whatever, or just, weren't getting paid around the league minimum. You're not going to get that.
Yeah.
You can't replicate that, So I don't care about the salary cap. Throw him money. Throw it at him. Boom.
Give him what he needs.
Yeah. So
excuse me.
I don't know what to expect, but at least in terms of how it breaks down logically, I don't see a con in terms of pros and cons.
And like you just said, that segment, or it gives us into our next segment really well. You mentioned that he doesn't want out and that he's not on a rookie contract. And that's not the case for Deebo Samuel. And that's been... Deebo Samuel drama has been in the talks it's just been popular for the last week. On April 19th, Samuel halts deal with the 49ers. San Francisco is ready to sign the wide receiver, but Deebo put a halt on everything for right now. On the 20th, Samuel asked teams to trade him, won't cite specific reasons. The 49ers want a huge haul for Samuel. The belief is that he won't be traded unless they get a king's ransom. And Samuel doesn't want to play a wide receiver running back role anymore. He doesn't want to be a hybrid position.
I want to hear what you think about that, because that's interesting to me, because at least in that, like with Jimmy Graham, let's use Jimmy Graham as an example, right? Jimmy Graham, I remember in his last few years with the Saints, before he was traded to Seattle, was pioneering to get a deal that was similar to a wide receiver deal, because he viewed himself more as a wide receiver as opposed to a tight end. So, if you think about it as being a guy who's like a hybrid, you'd think that would work yourself into some new money. And maybe you get yourself, you could argue, I get more touches, I get more yards, I'm more valuable to the offense than standard wide receiver does.
Sure.
You look at guys like, say, who got a deal? Okay, this isn't anything about Devontae Adams. Okay, but does he doesn't get those like jet sweeps or whatever, or those designed run kind of things. Like Tyreek Hill maybe gets some of those, right? You see what I'm going with this, right?
Yes.
There are types of wide receivers. So I'm saying you could leverage yourself into some money, but that part interests me. I'm wondering how much that thing about the hybrid is a falsity. I wonder how much of this is a new deal. Because sometimes we've seen that where guys say, "Oh, I want out of here. I blah blah," and it's just
they sign again.
They just want you to throw more money at you so that the green makes sense, so I'm going to stay. But I'm really interested about that, because that doesn't make entirely all that much sense to me.
I mean, if I'm looking at the rest of the NFL wide receivers and the contracts that they received, maybe that would entice me to go the wide receiver route. But otherwise, I don't know what about the running back role that he wouldn't prefer. I mean, do you get hit less as a wide receiver?
Oh,
Do you
yeah.
want to just like preserve your body for longer and you know that this is the role that you're good at and that you can continue to do for a long time?
Yeah, that part I think makes sense because obviously, yeah, if you are a running back, you're going to be a guy that gets beat up more.
Yeah.
But also saying, hey, can we work on some stuff that's more outside? Obviously, I'm assuming they don't run him up the gut, right? He's not obviously not a between the tackles guy.
Yeah.
But that quote, that report about the hybrid situation really sort of intrigued me, and I'm interested to see how much of that was actually real.
Yeah.
And how much of that may be just someone is putting out information about Deebo Samuel because his name is on the presses right now.
Who knows? I did, however, see a video a couple of days ago where he's at a club and they have one of those signs that they bring out every now and then, and it said Deebo is staying in San Francisco, and he was just like giving like the cut it motion.
Oh, that's what that video was.
Yeah. So who knows? Obviously something's got to change. I don't know if he's just demanding more money or if he really wants to leave and just San Francisco isn't his place anymore. But we'll continue to keep you guys posted on that situation. Moving on here, on the 21st, the NFL said that they would drop a schedule on May 12th. Select additional games will be announced in the days and weeks leading up to a full release. Cardinals not trading Kyler Murray. General manager Steve denies any report that the team will trade their quarterback. How much belief do you have in that, seeing that our situations were kind of similar and Russ got traded anyway?
It's interesting because I feel like if you continue to have the issues that Arizona has had, how many times in the last few years, right? I mean, as a Packers fan, I'm sure you see, top of the NFC, Green Bay tends to be there. But sometimes in the earlier part of these seasons, Arizona starts out, hey, Arizona's 5-1. What's going on?
Yeah.
And then, they get to like 7 and well, now it's a 17-game season. So let's say 7-2, right? They're 7-2. They're top of the NFC. What do we do? Oh no, they look really good. The NFC West could go through them. The Rams have and then there's a collapse. Last year it was what? It was like, was Murray injured or whatever?
It was about a month. Yeah, it was after the Green Bay game. Kyler Murray was injured, I think, and it was lingering. They said that he might return. They didn't give a timeline. They didn't say what exactly he injured, and I think it turned into a month and maybe even more that he was out. So, of course, that only enabled the skid there and the record to change, but who knows? Again, we'll keep tracking all this and make sure to notify you guys once we have more information. Also on the 21st, Deshaun Jackson may not retire. He says he's not really sure about playing next season, but is open to joining a few teams. He's open to joining the Chiefs, Packers, Browns, or Broncos. So
interesting list there.
Yeah, for sure. I know Broncos are on there. I didn't realize that he was on the list. They were on the list.
Well, I mean, I think it's definitely a situation where he doesn't want to have to deal with a quarterback that won't get him the ball.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where he, probably wants to go out on top. Wants to play with a guy, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson. What were the other one? Patrick
Chiefs,
Mahomes,
Packers, Browns, or Broncos.
Sean Watson, So, I mean, I guess it makes sense, but I'm interested to see. It's got to be a mutual thing, right? How many guys want to take on a wide receiver that's getting old, probably playing one of the last years of his career?
Right.
How many guys want to take that on, especially with their salary cap? How much money does Deshaun want?
Sure. We'll continue to monitor that and see where he heads, and if not retirement.
I would doubt it. I mean, I have to figure one of the teams is like, hey, man, we'll do a near event minimum for you. Not obviously too much, but I'm sure that someone will find a spot for Deshaun Jackson.
For sure. All right. On April 22nd, Earl Thomas states that he wants to return. The 7-time Pro Bowl safety Super Bowl champ hopes to resume his career at age 33. How realistic do you think that is?
I mean, I don't know. It's different than some of the situations with guys wanting to come back into the league, but I'm wondering if it's, with what happened with his brother and with some of the stuff he's had with coaches and former teammates where they didn't even want him in Baltimore anymore. How much of the people around the league said, "Hey, we saw what happened. We're gonna pass." So I would say the likelihood of him signing to a team, I'd say, is 30 to 70 in favor of no.
Got some personal baggage there to figure out.
Yeah.
Also on the 22nd, it was reported that the NFL will play 3 Christmas games. The league will expand Christmas slate to 3 games this year for the first time. Jam-packed Christmas Day. And it normally is for the NBA too. So where do you think that viewership goes?
Yeah, well, you know why they're doing that? They want to fight with the NBA for that viewership. So, I mean, I think, it comes down in terms, if you're just, you want who's going to get the viewership. I think it depends on what matchups you put.
Definitely.
But it's also, you talked about the schedule being announced here earlier in league news.
Yes.
There are a lot of times where, the league schedules a game in a primetime slot and they hope it's going to be a really good game. And then maybe 3 weeks into the season, they're crap. They're like, oh, this isn't a really good matchup. A really good AFC team is playing an NFC team that is like winless, So it's tough. I think it's going to be, if you get some situations around that time, Christmas time, you're getting gearing up for playoffs. You got to have some teams. I mean, people will still tune in. The NFL fan base is huge in this country. It's the most viewed sport by far in the States.
What do you think one of those matchups will need to be in order for it to really entice people?
One of the AFC North matchups. That division is going to be really tough. I think, or even AFC West. You look at the Chiefs, the Raiders, the Broncos, the Chargers. I would say it's got to be a divisional game, and it's got to be one of those. Because I don't know, who do you look at in the NFC? I don't really look at the NFC West right now because we're not really in it. The Cardinals probably won't be in it too much. The Rams, maybe the 49ers. So they lose Deebo Samuel, take it off the cards.
Yeah.
So, what if you put a Rams-Packers in there? That would have playoff implications. Silence. I think it has to be AFC North, AFC West. I remember a few years ago, it was AFC North. It was Steelers-Ravens, and Big Ben threw it to AB at the goal line, and he reached over to win the game. And I think it gave them the division on Christmas Day. So I think it's going to have to be AFC North, AFC West.
I'm taking it a little bit more personal and not going with a division, but just going with like a Packers-Raiders matchup. I would like to see that.
I mean, the Raiders could be a playoff team this year. I mean, everybody kind of, not going to use that word. Everybody kind of pooped on Derek Carr, as soon as they saw that Devontae Adams was going there. He's not a bad quarterback. I don't think he's a bad quarterback.
I'll hold my thoughts.
I'm not saying he's great. I just don't think he's bad.
Okay.
I think he's average to good at times.
At times.
Yes.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, we can agree there. Also reported on the 22nd, Steve Young says that we need to be better in regards to learning about a former teammate having CTE, and that former teammate is Greg Clark. The 49ers legendary QB wants an improved environment for NFL players to discuss mental health. In full support, obviously. I completely agree. And this brings me back to DK Metcalf, actually, and saying that therapy should not be looked at in a negative way. So if a player needs help, then it'd be nice for them to have an environment that they can seek that help.
Yeah, and I think it's important, especially a guy of like Steve Young, who is, a legendary quarterback and a guy who obviously has a large platform, to say stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important that that's said, because there could be guys, like him in his situation, it's got a large following that, believes this, but if they don't say it, it doesn't matter. They don't know your stance on it, and you couldn't, if you're not saying anything about it, people don't know your stance on it. So it's important to say these things,
Sure.
So I think that's all around, like you're saying, it's all around a good thing.
You added a couple notes here to the 25th, which is today, and I'm not too sure what that means. So I'll have you elaborate on that.
On the 25th, the Panthers reportedly do not want Baker Mayfield, which is certainly a headline.
Okay, so I'm going to actually cut you off there because look at what I see on my screen.
Oh, Bell's notes have not updated, so
Mine just says Panthers repo, so I wasn't sure who they were being repoed by.
yeah, the Panthers organization's been repoed. Carolina is not expected to trade for the Browns quarterback prior to the first night of the NFL draft, let alone at all. So that's, I guess, Robbie Anderson gets his wish.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is that Amazon reportedly wants to add a Black Friday game. So in addition to the Thanksgiving games that always take place and the now 3 Christmas games that will be taken, is that something that was confirmed or they're talking about it? The Christmas games.
I'm not sure. We can.
Well, I don't remember
check
what we
here.
said about that. But Amazon wants to add a game on the day after Thanksgiving for its streaming platform. So that is.
It is confirmed. The 3 Christmas.
Okay,
games.
so yeah, 3 Christmas games, 3 Thanksgiving games, and now a Black Friday. I just think it's too much. It's a Friday game. It's weird. It throws people off. I don't know. I'd say scrap it.
Really, I enjoy being able to watch sports just back to back. So
I mean, in the winter, there's already prime. You'll have college football by that'll be bowl season, right? Around Thanksgiving.
oh yeah,
Oh, that's rivalry week actually, because
college
I remember the Apple Cup is always around that time.
Mhm.
So
it definitely
so
is.
you already have rivalries.
Yeah,
I mean,
too many.
What do we got looking ahead?
The draft. That is all we have to look ahead for the week here. So, of course, like I said, we'll definitely update you guys on how the Seahawks do and if they keep that number 9 pick or they trade that away.
Off the top of your head, are they keeping it? Are they keeping it at number 9 or not? No? I agree with you. No. But if they keep it, they make a pick.
We'll be
okay
surprised.
So we'll toss it over here to our baseball team. Before we start this, I want to thank Big O. Obviously, they're on Morning Update Show, and that staff is on break this week. But to be able, it's throughout the season, you'll see myself as well as Bell, interchangeably, at the ballpark, for these games. But it was a really cool moment, to be in the Mariners press box. Obviously we want to do our best to give you the best coverage of all of these teams here, in our city, all 7 of them. Not to be able to hold credentials with 6 of the 7 is not only an incredible blessing, but baseball was always the big thing for me. My dad gave me my love of baseball. That was always such a big thing. All these sports are great. Don't get me wrong. Seahawks in their heyday, great. I had their heyday, which was like a few years ago, but to be there, it was kind of funny, as that game went into extra innings, and we'll get to those games and why I mentioned extra innings if you don't know. It just felt right.
Special.
Sitting there writing my little scorecard, it felt right. So that was a big moment, and a lot of that wouldn't be not only this show, but obviously that wouldn't be possible without Big O. So I hope they're doing well on their time off, But with that being said, we've got scores to give you. So we'll get into that here in the game recap for the past week for our Seattle Mariners Baseball Club. The Mariners had 2 series over the past week that we've got covered. The Rangers and the Kansas City Royals. On the 19th, the team played the Rangers in the first game of the 3-game series, winning that game 6-2. Player of the game, third baseman Eugenio Suarez, going 1 for 4 with 1 run and 3 RBIs. On the 20th versus the Rangers, a 4-2 win, taking the series. Player of the game would be pitcher Logan Gilbert. In his start, he went 6.2 innings, allowing only 6 hits, 0 runs, 0 earned runs, 0 walks, and 4 strikeouts. So Logan, another impressive start there to begin his year. April 21st versus the Rangers, an 8-6 loss, so no sweep there. Put away the brooms. You don't get to have that. Player of the game, shortstop J.P. Crawford, going 1 for 4 with 1 run and 1 run, 3 RBIs, and a walk. April 22nd versus the Kansas City Royals, a 4-1 win. As we switch over to the Royals here, and you'll see what's on the screen there. Player of the game in that first win over the Royals, player of the center fielder Julio Rodriguez, going 2 for 4 with a run and 2 RBIs. April 23rd versus the KC Royals, a 13-7 win, so a big win there. Player of the game, first baseman Ty France, and we'll get to Ty France. Don't worry about that. Going 5 for 6, so his first career 5-hit game. Recording 3 runs and 5 RBIs is also his first 5 RBI game. And then to wrap up the series there, April 24th versus the Royals, a 5-4 win in 12 innings. First baseman Ty France, the player of the game there as well, going 3 for 5 with a run, 2 RBIs, and a walk. So
How amazing was T-Mobile Park that day?
A lot of them stayed. I
Yeah.
know once we got to extras, people were like, screw this. And especially once we got to 12, because the game started at 1 and that was around 5. So that's 4 hours. A 4-hour game, you hope those things don't really happen.
Yeah.
But the atmosphere, it was kind of incredible, even on home opening day and just continuing it, not necessarily in those Texas games because people don't really care about the Rangers because they suck. But, the weekend games and home opening day, to see an atmosphere like that in April is kind of unheard of. You don't really get that. It's April, people are still kind of getting into it. That kind of comes in the summer and late season, right? In April, that sort of excitement, it just kind of shows you and gets you excited about what we'll see in the summer. The crowds will see, weekends in the summer, July, June.
Oh, yeah.
So it should be really, really exciting. But you see there, when we looked at the road trip, I know that they had some tough performances. Obviously, we talked about the one in the rain, the wind in Chicago. Just trying to get it in. There are a lot of new pieces to this team, and you want to let them settle in and get, work together. I mean, we look at the game on the 24th. No, pardon me, the 23rd, 13 runs. Let's see this. 13 runs, 6 runs, 4 runs, 6 runs, 4 runs, 13, 5. So the offense was really kind of putting things together. And even in that home opening day win is 11-1 against the Astros last week. So I think they're settling in because, again, I didn't want to look at that first week and get too judgmental, because it's the first week out of 162 games. I'm not that worried. So, it was really nice to see them kind of settle in. But also what was interesting was Jesse Winker, after he walked the game off yesterday, said, I don't remember the exact quote, and I can get that here, but he basically said he was excited to be a part of a clubhouse that wanted to win. And that was pretty incredible to see. And I can get that here. But I've been waiting my whole career to play for an organization that wants to win. And this is the Mariners, by the way.
Yeah.
There are people that I hear all the time because I have to hear this discourse. Oh, they're going to make it this year. Oh, it's the same old Mariners. That's so far from the truth. So, I mean, that was really cool to hear. So they went 7-2 on the homestand, which is pretty damn solid. And they had one guy that had his bat on fire. But before I go to my player of the week, Bel, who did you pick? I think we swapped again this week.
We did. And honestly, we're probably going to see these guys on our player of the week a lot. But I went with JP Crawford. He had, let me pull that up here, 23 at-bats, 3 runs, 8 hits, 1 double, 1 triple, 2 home runs, a 7 RBI, 17 total bases, a .348 average, a .429 OBP, a .739 slugging, and then a 1.168 on base plus slugging. So, I mean, I think we should move on to Ty Franco here. I really want to hear about his.
Well, before that, I think it's important to note, even before the homestand, right? JP was putting together a solid season, and maybe it's just because he doesn't hit a ton of home runs or whatever, or isn't. Yeah, I wouldn't say he's not flashy. I think he's flashy. I think he's got his own flash. But I think he's putting together a really solid season. And he's been doing so down near the bottom of the order. I know they bumped him up to third, I believe 2 games ago, but he's just been a really solid contributor, a guy that for the longest time was said that, he really wouldn't be able to hit very well.
Yeah.
Was just going to be a glove, just going to be good defensively. And he's good defensively. He's great defensively. Don't get me wrong. He's had some errors at the beginning of the season, but it's early season again. But, to be able to contribute, what was that? We look back here. I mean, just look at those. I mean, he even had the 2 homers over the past week.
Yeah.
So
coming off of that extension, and of course, you're a guy on the list now. People are crying out for an extension for him. So
I would hope so. But I don't want his shine to go unnoticed.
Yeah, definitely.
But with that being said, Mr. France here. I mean, over the past week, can I have you look at those? I mean, it was a pretty impressive list, and Those last few games, I mean, we look at the 5-hit game, the 5 RBI game, the same thing. He's always been a solid hitter. But I'll just have you look at the stats.
Yeah, so Ty Francis stats for the last week: 26 at-bats, 7 runs, 13 hits, 1 double, 3 home runs, a 10 RBI, 23 total bases. What else do we have here? 2 walks, a 500 average, a .552 on base percentage, a .885 slugging percentage, and a 1.436 on base plus slugging.
That speaks for itself.
Yeah,
it speaks for itself. Does. And on top of that, being a guy that last year was snubbed for a Gold Glove nomination at the first base, he was like 100. He was like totally perfect in fielding percentage. He had really good zone defense. I mean, it was a guy that he should have won a Gold Glove too, on top of his offense. So, 2 guys again they're really good friends, but also big parts of the offense, not only defensively. Big parts of the infield, not only defensively, but also on the offensive side of the ball, obviously. So, yeah, I think, like you said, we'll be rotating these guys a decent amount throughout the season. So, we go to look at the injury news here. And this is where things get kind of interesting for our Mariners, because you see this last homestand, and most of this homestand was played without these guys. So, we look over here on the 19th, Luis Torrens was placed on the injured list. On the 20th, Paul Seawolves was placed on the injured list. These are COVID, by the way.
Are they?
Well, Paul Seawolves was. Sorry, I don't know about Torrens.
Okay.
Manager Scott Service, and Coach Manny Actor were also placed on COVID IL. So, Coach Christopher Negron was named the acting manager. Negron had actually coached the Tacoma Rainiers last year as a manager, so he had some experience in that regard. On the 25th, Torrens was activated from the IL, so just a little bit ago today. First baseman Mike Ford, who was the resulting move last week for Torrens, was optioned to AAA Tacoma after the 24th and then DFA'd after the 25th. So, you look at this team and going 7-2 on the homestand and playing a decent amount of those games. Now without Mitch Haniger, without your skipper Scott Service, without Luis Torrens, and without one of your best bullpen guys in Paul Seawolves. On top of that, Ken Giles is injured. One of your relief pitcher that was one of the best relievers in the game a few years ago. Rookie of the Year Kyle Lewis. There are reinforcements that are in the wings for the Mariners. So to see the offensive production and to see the way that this team has played so far, I don't know. It's exciting to look at. So, as we continue into team news over here on the 19th, as I mentioned, Mike Ford was the first baseman selected from AAA Tacoma in the resulting move to Torrens being placed on the injured list. On the 20th, Penn Murphy, the right-handed pitcher, was selected from AAA Tacoma as a resulting move for Paul Seawolves. On the 23rd, the Mariners acquired outfielder Stuart Fairchild from the Arizona Diamondbacks in exchange for cash considerations. As a resulting move for that, infielder Kevin Padlow was designated for assignment. And then on the 25th, Ty France was named American League Player of the Week for that week he just had. So nice to see, though, that someone in Major League Baseball has some eye over on Seattle and what Seattle's doing, because that doesn't happen that often. So overall, I would say a good past week for our Mariners as we head over to League notes. The MLB may be looking into expansion in Nashville. Former All-Star Dave Stewart leads a group that is bidding for a Nashville club that would be the first minority-owned MLB team, which is interesting. Don't know how I feel about Nashville. I mean, I don't really care. I wouldn't be opposed to it, but it's an interesting choice in my opinion. The Tigers, Miguel Cabrera, became the 33rd member of the 3,000 hit club. He's only the 7th player to have 3,000 hits and 500 home runs on his career, joining Ty Cobb and Al Kaline. So it was really cool to see Miggy get that. I mean, a guy who actually started his career, I think, on a home run.
I think I also read that he's the first Venezuelan to do it.
Wow, really?
Yeah. So that's big.
But it was interesting because there was all the drama leading into it. I mean, I remember they were playing the Yankees, and in like the ninth, in his last at bat in one of the games, they intentionally walked him just so he couldn't get the chance to do that. That was, I mean, come on. That was a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah.
Um,
Yankees.
Outfielder Mike. Yeah, we've got some more Yankee stuff here in a sec. Don't worry about that. Outfielder Michael Conforto is out for the year. The free agent outfielder had season-ending shoulder injury surgery last week. He was a Mariners target potentially during the lockout, but obviously the Mariners did not go that way, acquiring Jesse Winker. And then Yankees fans, as we mentioned, throw trash on the field in their series against the Cleveland Guardians, and following a Yankees walk-off win, fans threw trash on the field in the direction of the Cleveland outfielders. Guardians outfielder Miles Straw called the Yankees fan base the worst fan base on the planet.
Don't see how you could feel any other way when you're getting trash thrown at you.
Yeah, I mean, that's just obviously such a trash thing to do. It's a garbage thing to do. So, yeah, we'll leave it at that. Looking ahead, for our Seattle Mariners here, they sit now at a 10-6 record on the season, which it's not bad. No. You're first in the AL West right now. Looking ahead, you go on the road, you go down to Florida. All right, you go to play the Tampa Bay Rays April 26th through 28th. April 26th at the Rays, a 3:40 start. April 27th, also a 3:40 start. And then April 28th, a 10 a.m. start. April 29th at the Miami Marlins, a 3:40 start. April 30th at the Marlins, a 3:10 start. And then May 1st at the Marlins, a 10:40 start. So you see there, some afternoon games. And then to finish up their series, they've got those day games.
Yeah.
I don't know. It should be an interesting road trip because the Rays, for a decent amount of time here, have been a solid contending team reaching the World Series. The Marlins haven't been good in a while. So it's still early season. And I'll preach this throughout the year. The most important thing to me for a playoff team is the team that is figuring out how to get back to the playoffs just to win series. You don't have to get the sweep every time, but like with these games of 3, win 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
And then move on.
Let's hope they could keep their.
That's how I look at that, and we will throw it over to Bel here for our Seattle Storm, who played. It was a preseason game, but it was a game.
On April 23rd, the LA Sparks faced the Phoenix Mercury, and they came out with a win, 81-68. I'm pretty sure it was like late in the first quarter, and they were up 20-2 or something like that. So the Storm came and. It was quite the storm for the Mercury. Our player of the game is Brianna Stewart, who had 20 points, 4 assists, and 3 rebounds. And honestly, I think I'm pretty surprised by Stewie, how much Stewie was on the court. I didn't normally go into preseason games assuming that the stars aren't going to make much of an appearance, but Stewie made a presence. And
well, even Drew Lloyd had 15 points in the first quarter,
for sure.
And then only scored 3 the remainder of the game. Sue Bird didn't see any action at all, which why should she?
Right.
But it was a solid game. I mean, you see the second unit kind of came in later in the game, and LA started to kind of make a push at it. Reina Perez, a training camp contract player, had 9 points off the bench, and I thought she played pretty well. It's interesting, though, because, again, with the roster size, Breon January and Gabby Williams haven't reported back because they're still overseas. Mm-hmm. Mercedes Russell's injured right now. So it's really interesting to see the makeup of like the opening day roster compared to maybe I say a month or two down the line, just because of the injuries, because of overseas stuff. So
yeah,
we're interesting to see who works their way into the lineup, who earns a roster spot to begin with.
Do you think that just the way that they came together to get this win, though, is a good takeaway? And maybe
I think coming out and dominating, I'm sure if Stewie and Jewel out there, that LA is a newly retooled team. I don't think they're going to make that much noise in the West, but I think it was a good showing to begin the game. Yeah. Certainly. I think it kind of shows you the level that you're going to need. Again, if you want to be a contending team and if you want to send Sue the right way out, you kind of play like that.
For sure. Moving on here, we have some injury news. On the 18th, of course, it was reported that Brianna Stewart was easing back into practice after undergoing minor Achilles surgery last October. Didn't seem to affect her much in that first preseason game. Again, she is our player of the game with 20 points. So looking good after surgery. Looks like she took the proper time to come back onto the court, and just excited to see what she does with the regular season here. Moving on to team notes, on the 21st, it was reported that Amazon Prime Video becomes the official streaming home of the Storm. So if you can't watch those games on Fox 13 or what's the other streaming platform where we...
I know the WNBA has their own league pass, which is only $25, and you can watch every single game. It's not like I think some league passes where you pay the whatever charge it is, and then you can only watch your team, right? Buy the league pass for the year. It's $25, and you can watch every single game.
Perfect. The Prime will be showing approximately 30 Storm games and will be available to Prime Video customers throughout Washington State.
So basically, there's no excuse. You know, you can't say, "Oh, I don't know what it's on." We'll list it here, and even I think we'll do that. Similar to the Rain games with who their broadcast partners will be for respective games. We'll do that with the Storm. When we do the show here, obviously, we'll do it in upcoming, and then on the game day posts that we post on social media, which again, you're not still following us on social media, please be sure to do that. As someone puts it right over here, put the partners because it's Amazon Prime Video here in the state, Fox 13 if you're in the Seattle area, and then the League Pass, which $25 for a League Pass is pretty good. I mean, I think NBA is like 100 something.
Oh goodness, yeah.
So like MLB, something like NFL. I think you don't have many excuses. 3 different ways to do that. If you're local, Fox 13, Amazon Prime Video, which just about everybody has Amazon nowadays. Or if you're not and you want to, watch Sue's last season, League Pass, and you get to watch all the other games anyway.
Yeah, so not a bad deal.
No excuses.
Currently, they stand at a 1-0 record. Of course, that is the one preseason game. And looking ahead, we have one more preseason game on the 28th at the Phoenix Mercury, and that is a 7 p.m. game. So we will transition now to our Sounders. How did they do this week?
I don't even want to. Okay. So coming off of that week where, you beat New York City FC to advance to the CCL final, the CONCACAF Champions League final, but then you lose to Miami just 3 days later. And it was just like a 1-goal loss. It's like, okay, this will happen. It's earlier in the season. You're coming off of a really important game as opposed to a game that's earlier in the regular season of the MLS, and it shouldn't really matter that much. Then you play San Jose, the Earthquakes, who have not won a game at all, and they're the lowest team in the Western Conference, and you lose 3-4. I normally with losses like this, I don't highlight players of the game, but because Nico Ladero had a goal, 2 assists on 1 shot on target, and a 79.6 pass percentage, I will do so. So Nico Ladero with the goal and 2 assists there, responsible, being a part of all of Seattle's goals. Seattle went into halftime up 2-1. Okay, fine. And then they went up 3-1. You say, okay, this is a team that has not won a game. They probably won't be able to finish out a game. And then you give up 2 goals around the 65th minute. You say, hey, we're tied right now. But also, San Jose, there's a caveat to all of this. San Jose, to give up the first goal that they gave up a penalty kick on a play that really should have been a red card and had San Jose playing with only 10 men. So there's one caveat. And then that you see that 4 there, 3-4, their final goal came off of a penalty that shouldn't have been called. And this is all, I don't remember his specific name. I think it was like Uncle. And Unkel was the referee. I guess he's notorious for not changing his decisions even after a replay review. And that same thing happened. So problematic, to say the least. But certainly a frustrating loss. Obviously, I know that after the Miami loss, Brian Schmetzer said that the team was pissed off.
They really should.
And I know he was visibly pissed off even at halftime of this one.
Yeah.
So really interested to see, what the rebound is for this, because the rebound game situation now has much more importance. So we'll get to that in a second. But so here's a stat for you. Prior to this loss, the Sounders had won 123 straight MLS matches in which they led by 2 goals at any point in the match, dating back to June of 2009. 2009, the year when the Sounders were back in their latest iteration. So the record in that situation is now 128 wins, 1 draw, and the 1 loss. Yeah. So that's a historic loss in a way.
Yeah.
So Frustrating. As we head over to injury news here, we have some more. It's like Yamar tracker. On the 19th, Yamar was a full participant in training, and on the 20th, Yamar was confirmed to be available for selection in that game against the San Jose Earthquakes. I don't think he saw much action at all, if that. So it might be more so that they're holding him to be ready for the CCL final, which comes up on Wednesday. So we'll see about that. Also on the 22nd, Dylan Tevez was ruled out with a right hamstring strain against San Jose in that match. So hoping that that's not too much of importance there. In team-related notes, I know we talked about U.S. Open Cup last week. The Sounders were announced to find out their opponent for the round of 32, and it's the San Jose Earthquakes. so the Sounders will play the San Jose Earthquakes in the round of 32 for the U.S. Open Cup. Something that's really interesting to me is that the Sounders have played San Jose in the U.S. Open Cup several times. I think it's 12 matches. None of them have been at Lumen Field. None. All different venues. And this match, guess where it's been played? Not at Lumen Field. It's going to be down at Starfire Sports Park complex in Tukwila,
Really?
where the Sounders have their training facility and the Seawolves play.
Yeah. Interesting.
Odd. So there's that for U.S. Open Cup news, and we'll get when that's actually scheduled. We'll find that more out for you. In terms of league-related notes, on the 21st, the MLS will be keeping its All-Star format from last season. The August exhibition match will pit MLS All-Stars against the best players from Liga MX for the second straight year. We head over to upcoming and sort of the record and standings here. So the Sounders sit in MLS play at a 2-win, 4-loss, 1-draw record. They sit at 11th in the Western Conference. Looking ahead, looking to bounce back, they will play Pumas on April 27th on the road down in Mexico City with a 7:30 p.m. start time. That game will be broadcast here in the States on Fox in English on FS1. That is the first leg of the CCL final, which is massive. Again, no MLS team has ever won that trophy. That's putting yourself on the world stage for an MLS team. So this is when they talk about this being a big, well, it was funny. Brian Schmetzer had a press conference after he had a clip from the locker room after the win against New York City. He said, this is a big effing deal for the club.
Yeah.
Which it is, because this is, again, putting yourself on the world stage. It's pretty solidly important. So, that's going to be a big match. So having Yamar back for it would be a really big deal. The best defender that you've got, a Defender of the Year finalist last year, just being fully healthy will be a big deal. So really interested to see how leg one goes, because obviously, like we've seen with the Sounders in the CCL final, CCL as a whole, in the different brackets they've played, if you play a really good leg one, you can, I wouldn't say you can afford to slouch in the second leg, but you've got some leeway. In the next leg.
So that's in a couple days here, so hopefully they're ready.
Yeah, that'll be a big deal. So we head over to our Kraken here. Over the past week, played 4 games as we're looking up to finish out the regular season. On the 18th, played the Ottawa Senators in a 4-2 win. Player of the game would be forward Victor Rask, scoring 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 points, a 1+- with 3 shots on goal in his 499th NHL game. So a nice win there for Seattle. April 20th versus the Colorado Avalanche, the best team in the Western Conference. Seattle would win that game, holding on to a 3-2 win. Player of the game, defenseman Will Borgen with 1 assist, 1 point, a 1+-, 1 shot on goal, 3 hits, and 2 blocks. Again, the best team in the West. Victor Rask did play in his 500th career NHL game, so congratulations to Victor for that. April 26th at the Minnesota Wild on the road, a 3-6 loss. Seattle had a lead going into that second period, and they gave up, I think, 5 goals in the second period. So collapse there. Player of the game for Jared McCann with 2 assists, 2 points, a 1+-, and 2 shots on goal. And then April 23rd at the Dallas Stars, a 2-3 loss, another collapse in the second period there. Player of the game for Yanni Gord with 1 goal, 1 point on 5 shots on goal, recording his 100th career goal. So kind of a split there over the past week. You get those 2 wins at home. And then, against Dallas there, just Dallas and Minnesota, the second period collapses. Just, it's stuff from a team. This is the team that's in 8th in the Pacific Division, near the bottom of near the basement in the NHL. I don't expect a ton more.
Yeah.
It's just like, you've been playing better as of late. I would have liked you to continue that, but it's near the end of the season. These guys are almost done with regular season, so I'm interested to see how they fully close that out, because these next 4 games are their last for their inaugural season. So we have a little prospect check-in here. Last 2 weeks, it's been all Maddie Beniers this, Maddie Beniers that. On the 21st, the team signed defenseman. Before I get to that, Ryker Evans, the defenseman, the 2nd overall pick by the Kraken in last year's draft. He was the 2nd pick by Seattle in the draft last year, the 35th overall pick in the draft as a whole. Evans was named to the East Division All-Star team down in the WHL and earned the Bill Hickey Most Popular Player Award for the Regina Pats in the WHL. And on the 22nd, the team signed Ryker Evans to a 3-year entry-level contract. He will start next season in the AHL. I believe he's already joined the Checkers in the AHL. He set WHL career highs in the 2021-2022 season in goals with 14, assists with 47, points with 61, a plus-minus with +9, and game-winning goals with 3. So I know he obviously Beniers, being the number 2 overall pick in last year's draft. That was a big deal to sign him, and he had a 5-game point streak. I don't know if it extended to 6, but really important. He's made impact already.
Yeah,
and he's got. I mean, the ceiling for him is the roof and above. With Evans, I know there's been not as much hype about him, but there has been excitement about him. So I'm interested to see how that goes. Interested to see when he plays if I know that Charlotte's in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So how much playoff burn he gets down in the AHL, but also how he'll be able to do. I'm assuming he's going to start next year out in the AHL, but with the Coachella Valley Firebirds, which will be Seattle's representative in the AHL. Because right now, I don't know if you ever saw that, we're splitting the Checkers with the Florida Panthers, so we're like sharing a minor league team right now.
Yeah, I think you've mentioned that to me before.
Kind of odd,
weird,
but it works. So. Also in team news, on the 25th, the team recalled goaltender Joey Decord and defenseman Dennis Chalosky. Both of those guys play with the Checkers down in Charlotte. But because Charlotte doesn't have games for a little bit of time while they wait for the playoffs, why not give them some time up in the NHL burn, see if they get any playing time? I know that in terms of they had their last practice today, open to the public. And defensemen Hayden Fleury and Vince Dunn were not present, so that opens up a spot for Chalosky. But in the goaltender spot, not too sure how Joey might fit in there, but we'll see about that. And obviously, there's 4 games, so there's plenty of time, I'd say, to get some experience out there. In league-related news, Marc-Andre Fleury will play at least 1 more season. The current Wild netminder reveals that he has plans to return for at least 1 more season. Flower's been a fan favorite around the league. So it'll be nice to see him play at least 1 more year. So looking ahead, the Kraken play their last 4 games of the season. They have a 26, 46, and 6 record, 26 wins, 46 losses, and 6 overtime losses, resulting in 58 points. As always, they sit at 8th in the Pacific Division. Their next 4 games are at the Vancouver Canucks on April 26th with a 7 o'clock puck drop. April 27th versus the LA Kings back at home with a 7 o'clock puck drop. April 29th versus the San Jose Sharks, the final home game of the season, a 7 o'clock puck drop. And then May 1st at the Winnipeg Jets, the final game of the season for Seattle, and 11 a.m. Pacific time puck drop. So I'd say if you've got the funds and you've got the reason to, I would get out there for those last, because again, outside of that wild game and the Stars game, and they always put a show on at home. The whole experience is really great, and you can say that you were there for the inaugural season. So that's history of its own right. So if you can do so, I would say do so. And we head over to our OL Reign here. Belle, why don't you take the reins for that and look at the final Reign game for the Challenge Cup in the group stage?
Yeah, so the Reign faced the San Diego Wave, and that game ended in a draw, 1-1. Our player of the game was Ali Watt with 1 goal, 3 shots, 2 shots on goal. her first NWSL goal, and the Reign clinched the West with the draw.
So now I have to give some background on this game. So the first 18 minutes of the match, this one's down in San Diego. So if it was at home, I could tell you what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But the first 18 minutes of the match, the CBS broadcast effed up, and the first 18 minutes were not streamed. So it just had technical difficulties. And Ali Watt's goal, her first NWSL goal, was not on the broadcast. It happened in the 12th minute. So, I mean, there's like a really fuzzy GIF of it online that someone had. So there's that. But also the way that San Diego got their goal and that resulted in a draw was off of a handball off of Ali Watt that hit her face. So the ball, if we can go to the wide here, the ball was kicked. It hit her face, and the ref said, "No, that's a handball."
Oh my god!
In the box. So that resulted in Alex Morgan getting the penalty kick and putting that away, and it resulted in a draw. I don't know about either. Obviously we got Bel here, but Salman behind the camera. I don't know if a ball hits you in the face. Is that your hand? I don't know.
I think there's a difference.
Yeah. So, and on the video, we do have actual video of her getting hit in the face, and it's her getting hit in the face.
Oh god.
So, that game was an entire mess. There was a whole mess there, and there was even more than I just explained. There was like a little fight there, on the goal that Ali Watt scored. The Kaylin Sheridan, the Wave goalkeeper, took out Bethany Balser, and she later on in the game had to go out. Rose Lavelle was injured in that game, so it was a whole mess. It was a big mess, and just really the whole situation could have been handled by the NWSL differently, and another situation could have been handled differently. But we'll get to that as we get to league news. Injury news. What do we have here?
Our match injury report. Angelina was out with the right ankle. Ziara King was out with a right ankle, and Megan Rapinoe was out with that right calf.
Again, nothing too different.
Yeah.
And as we've said, Rapinoe is just focusing on regular season, so not too worried about that, but just hoping that both Angelina and Z are progressing well. So, and this one relates to you a little bit because we'll get to that section here a little bit later. But what happened on the 22nd?
On the 22nd, goalkeeper Fallon Tullis-Joyce earns NWSL save of the week. She earned that for her save in the 82nd minute of the match on April 27th against Angel City FC, and it's the third week in a row that Tullis-Joyce earns this honor. I'm going to hold my excitement for our last segment here, but third week in a row.
And again, like we were saying, I think to top the show off, 3 out of 4. Pretty good. It's pretty good.
Good for her.
And then the 24th, I want to look at this now because this is a big, to play off what, with the Sounders match, you're saying it's a big effing deal. This is a big effing mess. So on the 24th, it was announced that the Reign had earned home field advantage for the Challenge Cup semifinals. I mean, they were first in the West, and I think they took first in the league. So they would have hosted a semifinal match for the Challenge Cup on May 4th. But due to the CCL final that the Sounders are playing leg 2 on the 4th at 7 o'clock, and despite the league's best efforts, the league put out a statement that despite the best efforts of the club to find an alternate solution to retain a home field advantage, this will be a road game for the Reign. They will play the semifinal at Segra Field in Leesburg, Virginia against the Washington Spirit. So Washington effectively gets a home game.
How much do you believe in home field advantage?
The Reign have one of the best supporting sections in all of NWSL, so I would say it's real. And to have a field like Lumen Field compared to what I've heard about Segra, which is it's bad, I think that's going to play some factor. I think that this is a talented enough group to overpower that and get past that, but it's still really frustrating, to say that the club or whatever explored all avenues. This, like you and I talked about before we began here, there are several days this season where the Reign and the Sounders play on the same day. Why can't you do that? Why can't you have a 1 o'clock kickoff? Because kickoff for the title game's at 10 a.m. Why would you have a 10 a.m. start time for a championship game, no less, right? And so the semifinal match, why can't you move it to the 3rd or the 5th?
And they earned it. They earned home field advantage.
So it's the league has handled it really poorly. And it's just frustrating. So if, though, the Reign win this game, they will host the Challenge Cup final at Lumen Field on May 11th. Yes. At a 10 a.m. start, as I mentioned, 10 a.m. start, and the regular season home opener that is scheduled for the 8th will have to be rescheduled. So
they can reschedule games.
Yeah, apparently so. So tell us what we've got looking ahead here.
We sit at a 4 wins, 0 losses, 2 draw record, and first in the Western Division. And looking ahead, we have a May 1st at Washington Spirit with a 2 p.m. start, and May 4th again at Washington Spirit for that Challenge Cup semifinal.
And that May 1st game is the regular season opener, not the home opener, obviously, but the regular season opener. The Reign will take on the defending champs in Washington. That's just a whole mess. And that frustration has been felt by the fans. It's obviously the players as well, but it's just incredible that that's even a thing that we have to squabble about.
Yeah.
So,
imagine being really excited and then realizing that you can't even go to the game.
Pretty much. Well, even it was originally, I think, scheduled for like a 9 o'clock start, that final game. If you start at 9 o'clock, your like pregame stuff has to begin at like 6. That's ridiculous. It's a whole different thing. We'll head over to our Seattle Seawolves here, who, as we mentioned, have a tight playoff race in the Western Conference. Every game really counts. I think you can only lose maybe one game the rest of the season, and luckily they didn't burn that one game here. April 23rd at the Utah Warriors down in Utah, a 20-14 win. No bonus points, unfortunately, in the standings. Player of the game, number 8, Ryker Evans, with 2 tries in the 37th and 63rd minute, was able to record those 2 tries despite recording a yellow card really early on in the match. So was able to not have to worry about that. And, well, maybe he worried about it, but he was able to play through it despite. And, I mean, your team captain kind of showing that, hey, I may have this, but I'm still going to be able to produce is pretty impressive. But, I mean, this was a game that was a little bit frustrating. I know that for a decent period of time, Seattle was losing 13-14. You're like, hey, Utah's only won 2 games. If you want to be in the playoff race, you lose this game, you're basically out. And they didn't do that, fortunately. But just looking at the scenarios and everything, every game really is important. And it doesn't get any, like I said, you probably have to win 4 out of 5 games if you want to secure one of those playoff spots. Because if we look at Major League Rugby and their standings right now, we go Major League Rugby, and we head over here. I think Austin at first in the Western Conference has pretty much secured their place for first. Like, unless
goodness, and that's who we face next.
Yeah, unless something meteoric happens, they're not moving out of first place with 43 points. LA sits at 33 in second. Seattle is third with 31. So 2 points separate you in second. And 3 teams from each conference make the playoffs. So right now you're in a spot. But fourth place has 31 points. That's Houston. San Diego is 5th place, and they have 28. And they're not that far out of it. Dallas and Utah don't care. So
that's uncomfortably close.
Yeah, it's a really tight race. And like you mentioned, so now sitting at a 6-5 record, third in the Western Conference with those 30 those points. Looking ahead, May 1st at Austin, on the road against Austin. You already lost your first contest against Austin. So this is a 4 o'clock start time. This is a really big game. If you're able to win this, I'd say I'd have some confidence in you going forward to lock up maybe the second, potentially the third. But it's not going to get any easier because, again, I think I mentioned it. You played Austin. You play LA, who's second right now. You play Houston, who's right below you. And you play Rugby New York, who is a playoff team in the East. So there's 4 playoff teams potentially right there. 4 teams like fighting for their spot. Austin not fighting for their spot, but holding a commanding lead. So,
and we have losses to Austin and LA already previously, right, in the season. So maybe it'll be like revenge games. want to come out and win the next one.
Well, yeah, but I mean, there's so much added pressure too because you have to,
for sure.
and it's playoff spot. So that'll be a big deal. As we now switch over to Seattle Star of the Week, simply put, I put Ty France. I looked at it last night. I went back to the podcast episode where that we went over I went over that trade. That was September 5th of 2020. And I said, Ty France, is a guy who's produced, blah, blah, blah. He's going to be good. And I mean, he had a good season in 2021 and 2022. He's already lighting it up. And I think he's just going to be a really integral part of this team that, they want to get to the playoffs. You want to increase your offensive output. Pardon me. He's bringing up the team's batting average as a whole because his batting average is so high. But he's also a guy that, plays well defensively on that side of the ball. So he lit it up, American League Player of the Week. He's got MLB Network talking about him, which MLB Network never talks about the Mariners, really. I thought he had a really incredible week. And really excited to see him continue that throughout the course of the season. Your pick wasn't half off at all. I mean, Fallon's been great, but why did you go with Fallon here?
That third week of getting the save of the week, she's doing her job and she's doing it well, and defense wins games. So seeing her continue to be effective there as the goalkeeper, you can't go wrong.
Again, that was a spot that I thought maybe had a concern going into it this year, and she's quieted that. So with that being said, I will take a look. Well, we will take a look here at that third save of the week.
Looking to get one here. Endo shooting it. Endo saved by Tullis-Joyce. The first big one she had to make, she made it.
A fantastic save from Tullis-Joyce. Sees it the entire way, and it's a strong left hand just to push it over the inline.
So I mean, 3 out of 4, already really impressive coming out and taking that starting spot. I can't argue with that. I really can't argue with that. And I think that this is a Reign team that, again, is looking for their first NWSL title. They're kind of favorites in the NWSL right now around what I've been able to see from just fan bases and just general writing. Kind of the favorites right now. But obviously favoritism doesn't mean anything until you've got that hardware in hand.
Yeah.
So I think her success, obviously, as a goaltender will really be important for this team going forward, and she's already had a good amount of it so far. So, again, not too bad. Going with Ty France, Bel going with Tullis-Joyce. You can't really go wrong with either way. But, man, what performances we've seen in the last few weeks. And, again, I think we picked a really good time to start including that segment. So, with that being said, like I said at the top of the show, you'll see whether it's me or Bel at the ballpark all season. We'll be at the Storm games as this their season kicks up. Sounders throughout the year. So excited to be able to bring you this coverage of all of our pro teams here in Seattle, whether they continue off seasons, as they start to begin their season, if they're in the middle of their season, just the best that we possibly can. So until we see you again in May. It's going to be May. Take care of yourself, be well, and do whatever you can to make today a great day.